Hello and welcome to Scale Stuff. In this week's video, I'm going to be taking a post-build look at the 1/35th scale Crusader Mk.III by Tamiya. As always, before I get into the kit, I'm going to start with a little bit of history. The Crusader was one of the primary British cruiser tanks during the opening years of the Second World War, and one of the most important British tanks of the North Africa campaign. The Crusader had good mobility that made it a favourite of British tank crews, and its 6-pound main gun made it more than a match for the early Panzer III and Panzer IV tanks. However, by late 1942, the lack of an armament upgrade, combined with bigger and better German tanks appearing on the scene, as well as reliability problems caused by the harsh desert conditions, led to the Crusader being replaced by American Lend-Lease tanks. Now, onto the model. Overall, I found this model a bit lacking compared to Tamiya's normal standard of offerings, but you do get a nice model if you're willing to stick with it. This model is a reboxed Italiaria, originally made in 1976, with a few added sprues from the Tamiya Churchill tank kit. Compared to other models of this time frame, the model's actually pretty good for its age. As always though, I checked around on the internet to see if there were any inaccuracies in the build, and because of the age of the kit I expected to find loads with it, but apparently it's pretty accurate. There was an error in the past with the front fenders on the Italiaria kit, but Tamiya have fixed that apparently, so maybe not a complete copy and paste rebox. Overall, I found the build process on this model a little bit dated though. The instructions are fairly clear and easy to follow for the most part, but a lot of the parts lack positioning pegs, with most bits simply being glued to a small flat square on the side of the model. This means you'll have to be careful when adding details to the tank, and it can be a little bit nerve-wracking not knowing if the placement will interfere with construction further on down the line. I also found parts needed to be watched, as sometimes, as the glue's still set in, parts would sag or start to slide down the tank before the glue had fully grabbed them. Cleanup wise, however, the model was pretty standard, so I think Tamiya must have had a go at the tooling of this kit when they acquired it, as normal models from the 70s are covered with tons of flash when the toolings are this old. When building this model, there's quite a few things you want to keep an eye on during the construction. I've already mentioned the lack of locator pins, but feel it needs to be mentioned again as it's throughout every part of this build. A few other things to watch out for. The exhaust plate covers I found didn't want to line up and sit flat with the filters and the hull of the tank. However, with a little bit of careful bending and dry fitting, these parts go on after a bit of gentle persuasion. Another thing to note is the turret ring on this tank. Normally kits are built with a little bit of a slack to allow for painting. There's not so much of this on this kit. If you want to move the turret easily after it's constructed, try to keep paint to a minimum on the contact points, as mine's become firmly wedged into place, and it takes quite a bit of force to move it, but that could be a building error on my part. Also, when adding the side skirts of the tank to the hull, there's a bit of a fit error on the left side. I cut off the stepped-in attachment points to achieve a flush fit with the side of the tank, though I've seen other modelers use a little bit of filler to achieve the same ends. The prize for worst part of the whole build goes to the rubber tracks in this kit. The ones that come in this kit are absolute rubbish. They're too long and kind of stretch if handled, and this kind of leads to reverse draping as I handled the model to paint it. I thought at first that the tracks were meant to be draped over the top of the tracks, and that was what all the slack was for, despite the fact that you wouldn't see this under the side skirts, but the more I draped the tracks, it quickly became apparent there was just too much track for the tank. In the end, I ran them over the important bits that would be seen as tight as I could and glued all the rest of the track to the upper inner fender bit. A bit annoying, but yeah, all the worst bits are hidden out of sight. This kit comes with 5 crew members, 3 of which are from the dated Italiaria sprues. The details on these are not so great, but I'm sure I'll find a tank for them further on down the line. And 2 of the figures come with the Tamiya detailing sprue, which I've seen before in the Tamiya Churchill kit. These figures are lovely sculpts and kind of fit on the tank and around the tank, but you can tell they're not moulded to fit the Crusader, but they do a fairly convincing job. Decals wise, the kit comes with markings to build 2 tanks, one from the 6th Armoured Division in Tunisia, and another tank from the 6th Armoured Division, also based in Tunisia. Both colour patterns were olive green overall, and I'm kind of bored of just painting olive green, so I decided sod it and copied the Border Models Queen's 9th Lancers 1st Armoured Division paint plan as best as I could with random leftover decals I had kicking about, as to me it was more appealing and a little bit more engaging than doing just a plain olive paint scheme. Price and conclusion. I paid 33 quid for this kit, and for the money it's an okay price. Some of the old Italia errors have been fixed in this kit, which is nice, and the addition of a better crew and gear does improve the model. However, older versions of the kit can be picked up for around £24, and if you're not too fussed about the crew and a couple of minor errors, I'd say that this would be better value for your money. Overall, the kit does go together well though, and you do get a nice model if you're willing to stick it out, but the kit does feel quite dated to me at least. The rubber tracks are the worst part of this kit by far, with the lack of locating pins coming in a close second, as I think it might be off-putting for the less experienced modeler, or those of us who are spoiled by, let's face it, the more modern brainless building of modern kits, which generally just come perfect out of the box most of the time. Anyway, that's my after-action report on the Tamiya Italia rebox of the Crusader Mk.III. As always, thank you for watching. I hope you found the video helpful if you're planning on building one of these yourself. But until next time, look after yourselves and have a good one. Goodbye.